And welcome, everybody. It is today my sincere pleasure to welcome my friend and co-recruit from Special Forces, Nastia Liukin. You guys know her as a 5-time gold medalist at the 2008 Olympic Games. I'm not sure if they were all gold, including the all-around gold medal. She has since been inducted into the International Gymnastics Hall of Fame, the USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame, the United States Olympic Hall of Fame, and she founded one of the most prestigious events in the sport of gymnastics, the Nastia Liukin Cup. For the past decade, she has been the lead female gymnastic analyst with NBC Olympics. Who better than her? And she and I got to know each other very well over the course of this adventure we all went on. And mostly today, in addition to giving you all a chance on Twitter Spaces to talk to her as well, I want to talk about the things you didn't see on the show, because there's a lot. But all of us agree when we got off, we're like, my goodness, there was so much interesting stuff that happened. In fact, I want us to do an unseen moments show at some point. But today we're dedicated to Special Forces. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow with our usual conversation. But let's get right to it.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
And again, welcome everybody. Tomorrow, just a reminder, we'll be doing calls again, which have not done a call show in quite some time. I'm exclusively your questions. I've been on a couple of Twitter spaces regarding the Twitter file dumps recently, and there's a lot of new thinking going around. I had the privilege of speaking to a congressperson today as well, who had some plans to sort of shake up what we've all been worried about. So that's coming tomorrow. There may be a guest tomorrow, but I think my preference is to have calls. On Wednesday, we still have Dr. Stephen Hatfill. Is that correct, Caleb? Am I getting that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm very excited for him.
All right. And that's, of course, with Kelly again and Ryan Cole coming back on February 1st. And I think Dr. Victory got January 25th book with Jessica Rose. Is that correct as well? Anybody want to help me with that?
Possibly. Also, it's
All right.
It's a Dr. Jessica Rose, not the Jessica Rose from Lonely Girl 15, which I thought it was at first. Yeah, as an internet person.
Oh my God! Wow. You've been on the internet. You've been doing this stuff too long, Caleb. That's all I'm saying. No, this is a brilliant researcher who has some strong opinions. Of course, I'm watching you all on the restream here as well as over at the Rumble Rants. I just see the First Lady of Love over there. Not much else going on, but do join us.
Yeah, no rumblies.
No rumblies. And before,
well, it's a different time. Whenever we come in early, sometimes.
Yes, it gets a little weird for people. And before we started, Susan leaned in and goes, "They need to have flashbacks." And I said, No. The way reality shows work is you have unseen moment shows. And today we're going to talk about those unseen moments with my friend Nastia Liukin. Nastia, welcome.
Having me. This
oh
is the
no,
moment
Mike!
I've
There we
really
are.
Been waiting for.
This is it. Here it is. Forget all those gold medals and all that business. So before we get into our experience, tell people about your story a little bit, if you don't mind, because I found it so fascinating with your dad and Russia and all those elements that I think make you such an interesting person. Please.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's an honor to have met you, been on an insane show with you that we'll dive into. But yeah, my background, I was born in Moscow, and both my parents, only child, both my parents were world Olympic champion gymnasts. And I think I was born with like some good genes, I guess you could say, and
some, yeah, a couple.
And they actually, they really didn't want me to do gymnastics just because they like knew how hard the sport was. They wanted me to find my happiness and my joy. And that came from gymnastics. And then they saw, at a very early age, also a God-given talent. And they were like, okay, well, we're not going to take that away from you. So they let me do it. And them letting me do it kind of led me to, setting these goals for myself. Strictly, like, I wanted to be just like my parents. I wanted to be a world champion. I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I wanted to be the best in the world. And I was so lucky that, I was able to do that with my dad as my coach, like right by my side. And I think like that to me, yeah, of course there were like, like we're such similar people and we're perfectionist and we're stubborn and we're all of those things, which, at times like of frustration or whatever, like it was hard. It was hard being a teenager and thinking that like you knew better, even though, of course I knew I was not right at times, but having that moment, like the biggest, greatest moment of my entire life with my dad right next to me was a moment that I truly will, cherish and remember for the rest of my life.
You also, I forget the story you told me exactly, but it just stayed with me as you had some sort of moment of clarity thanks to your dad or something. Like he set some limit down with you when you were a teenager or sort of, or maybe backed off. I don't know what the story was, but you sort of told me a story and I don't remember the details at all. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think and it's really interesting tying it back into the show now and not realizing it then, also not realizing it when I even told you the first time, I think. But it really was about like being the best version of yourself and competing against yourself. And he was like such a numbers person that he would write down, all of my routines, start values, and then like so gymnastics scoring, not to get too technical here, but it's gotten super complicated. And basically there's two sides of the scoring system. One is the difficulty and one is the execution. So difficulty is like the skills you perform. Execution is, basically point your toes, don't like stick your landing, all of that. And he would put the bare minimum like execution score and and just like show me like, look, like all you have to do is literally like land on your feet, like and it's yours. And so I think I was always so not worried about others, but I was always like trying to be better than somebody else. And when I
Mm.
realized like you're on your own journey, like just like you do you, like focus on yourself because that's all that matters and that's the best you can do, and especially in a sport that is subjective. Like
We,
there are moments
Susan,
that
you
a
want to,
judge could win, like, or could make
yeah,
someone else
yeah,
win if they like you better.
that's right. Susan, I wonder if you want to lean in on this because we were an ice skating family for a minute
Yes.
and we know
Very
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, very similar stuff.
Solo sport.
And judges and
And
you
like
know,
The
what you
subjective
wear
side of it.
and what you like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
all like somebody's like opinion essentially. Like, yeah, you can say obviously if you fall, but like when it comes down at the very top, and like this is of every sport, every industry, everything, it's you're all great, right? And it's like, okay,
yeah,
it's that little extra something. And sometimes you like the difference between first and second place, could be 1/10 of a point, and that could be based on literally a judge liking somebody else better, or your country, or
right,
your leotard, or something. So
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
that's what I think I realized pretty early on in life. And so, fast forward to the show and Remy telling me that I'm literally like, this is my journey. This is not about anybody else. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like went back to not remembering that a little bit and just kind
mm,
of thinking like, but like they did better than me and they didn't get special treatment. And like I had all these things like in my head. And at the end of the day, I also remember the importance of integrity. I was raised with that, and our directing staff, like when we got there, the importance of integrity. And to me, special treatment, like getting special treatment in that moment was, yeah.
yeah. We'll talk more about that, but it's so interesting to me that every one of us, the intensity of the experience was like nothing else. And that we all came away with stuff. We all came away with really important things, no matter how long we stayed, which is sort of extraordinary. And these great relationships on top of that.
And that's what I was about to add on to. Like, it doesn't matter how long we stayed. Like, obviously I am not on the show anymore. You are not either. And, not to give any spoilers for, the rest that's to come, but it's like every single one of us, like, I think one of the greatest things, yes, the experiences and, pushing yourself to the limit and all that, but I think like the thing I was least expecting was to come away with like the relationships and friendships that we like kind of like all created.
Yeah.
And not that like I
Yeah.
didn't want that or I didn't need that,
Yeah.
but I just like didn't think that it would be like that strong.
Yeah, I didn't either. But I would argue, I mean, people can see how spontaneous and friendly and stuff you are just 2 minutes talking to you. Anybody would see that right away. But I would argue that to some extent, I'm laughing because this is a theory of mine, that you're somewhat responsible for it because you broke down the quarantine completely on like day one, and that created a group of us, that everybody else sort of came around after that. So it was you, me, Danny, Beverly, Gus, and Hannah. And we all hung out for a week, so we all got to know each other very, very well. So when we got in there, we were already looking out for each other. We were all very supportive of each other, and the other guys just kind of came in around us, it seemed to me. Am I getting that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so I knew Danny and Gus for a while. You and I had briefly met, I think, at an event like way back when. And then Hannah, I hadn't met her, but we had done Dancing with the Stars to get like not together, but like it's kind of like you're part of a family essentially. So you think you know each other.
Yeah.
Beverly, I had never met, but just is so lovely and like so friendly. You think that you've known her your whole life. So I think like the moment I walked outside that first day when we were at the hotel in quarantine and I saw Danny, and this is like typical in Danny fashion, a backpack that with like weights he stole from the whole hotel gym, his boots on, it is like 100 degrees outside. And like, he's just running back. And I'm like, holy shit.
Wait a minute, Nastia. Wait a minute. He was all that plus a sweat hoodie with a parka on and headsets. And I saw that in San, and it was 105. I took a picture of the temperature that day on my phone. And I saw that insanity running down the beach. I went, well, that's got to be one of us. So that's why I went out to meet him.
And so I saw him, but I couldn't tell who it was, obviously, because he's like, like just, hoodie on, headphones, like whatever. And I'm like, like who else is first? It was the shoes for me, like dead giveaway. Like it was the shoes.
Yeah, the boots are giveaway. We all had the same boots.
Yeah, but then immediately I'm like, well, first of all, before I figure out who this is, I haven't even like walked 2 feet in my boots, and so I start panicking because they sent them to us to break in, and I just didn't. And, I'm like, well, at this point, it's probably too late. So I'm like, okay, get past that. And then I see you and Beverly. And so then you guys start kind of like, talking. And I'm like, okay, this for sure. But I'm still like far enough away. But then it was kind of like everyone knew we weren't supposed to be talking or like, because we were quarantining and like it was top secret. And then I was like, no. Like we're all gonna hang. Like we're all in this together. And so that's what we did. And it was great.
That was it. So here's what happened up on the high wire for you, which was an amazing experience. And you put it on Instagram and compared it again. I can't believe that it's even anywhere near what the balance beam was for you, but that's an interesting side by side.
Well, to be completely honest, I feel like it was harder than that moment just because, and this is the way that, and I'm sure for you and for pretty much everyone else, we had no idea what we were like going into. We couldn't prepare for it. It's like, yes, there are moments and situations within all of our careers and all of our industries where like you feel a little unprepared or like, but you did your absolute best to, whether it's, read up on somebody or study or train as hard as you can, but like, you're not quite prepared. Oh no, this was like, you have no idea you're walking into. Like you could watch it, you could, think. I remember all of us like sitting there just like scheming, being like, okay, so if we have to do this, like people were literally teaching each other breathing methods, like while we were sitting on the beach.
True.
Like looking up YouTube like videos, and I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? That was
as I recall, you were the only person I think in the whole group that didn't really train for this. You didn't really train, which I found astonishing
at all. at all. So okay, I had one workout session. I happened to be in New York during the time of like all of this happening, it was like the calls with production and like contract, like everything. And so we weren't allowed to tell anybody, obviously, but one of my closest, dearest friends is also my trainer in New York. And so I told her, and she was like, all right, let's go. I'm canceling all my other clients. Like, we're going. And I was like, no. That's not why I told you. I was like, I'm good. I don't need. And I did end up working out here that day. My thought, though, was, okay, I know that I'm not going to be physically like where I want to be and like going into this. Like I would never go into gymnastics competition as unprepared or as just like weak as I was. That being said, I knew mentally I needed to be in a place where I was able to kind of take on that challenge. And for me, part of that mental state is my body not being like, I didn't want to go into it sore to begin with. And I knew with the lack of time that I had, I just needed to like.
I see.
So that was my thought process of like.
And so Nastia laid on the beach for the whole week that we were all.
I want to interject something. So our good friend Heather McDonald is like a huge reality show, like housewives follower. And she called me up and she goes, why did Drew do this?
And Juicy Scoop.
Why did Drew do this? And why did you let him? I would never do this in a million years. And are you kidding me? Did you want him to die? Was that a secret? Was that a secret wish of yours?
So funny.
Like, thanks for being our friend.
No, she didn't.
It's so true though. Like after watching it, like you would think like, oh, did you just like read your will for the first time? And like you realize, no, I'm totally kidding. But like, that's my dad, honestly.
It was scary.
Yeah. My dad literally said after watching the first, and like, this is months after we filmed it, but he was like, why? Like,
yeah.
Did you not have enough? Training your whole life, like being, like putting, like literally just and like nothing was shown.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Hold on, we'll talk about that. But I did notice there's like two camps of people out there. The people that really, because you cannot describe what this experience is like. You can't. But people who sort of appreciated that and kind of got into it with us, and people who stand back and go, what are you doing? What's all this about? What's happening here? And why did you do it? And it's fascinating to me because all of us, I don't think anybody have any regrets or feels that we should have, we're all like, no, this was a great experience. We all came in with something important. And so I have a weird thing for me, and Remy asked me this, and I kind of have a score to settle. He goes, would you go back in? And I said, yeah, because I'm really so pissed that I went out the way I did. And you can probably understand that. You know what I mean? You understand you want to do your best and not have, yeah.
It's
and
funny.
It was just interrupted. I got sick.
Yeah,
so
that
goddamn sick.
I know. And it was like that watching you, like, I think that hit us all like really hard because you were kind of like our glue, like the foundation and our glue. And like, we all trusted you for some reason. No clue why. No, I'm just kidding. But we were just like, okay, if Dr. Drew is doing this, and if he think like, we kind of felt more at ease for some reason, knowing like you were there. And like, if something truly, I remember thinking in my mind, if something is like truly going to kill me, or like I am at risk, whether it's like physically, my health, like something, like I knew I could look at you and you would like give me like a face or a glare or like something to kind of like, like, and so it was like a feeling like we didn't have our, for me, like you don't have your parents, you don't have your coaches, you don't have your significant others, like you don't have any of that. And so I think you were that person, at least for me, and I know a lot of other people. And so the second you went, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, wait, first of all, like, no, that's my lifeline, but also, wait, no, I know that he, like, you were so, like, you did not want that, at all. And so it was
No,
like,
I was into
so
it.
hard.
I had a great day. I had a great day all day, and then all of a sudden, sick of shit, like out of the blue. But I think some of the reason I was an anchor for some people was Piazza and Scaramucci said, "Oh, we're glad you're here. You're older than us. I'm so glad you're here." And that was their reason that they were felt better. But I want to get back to the your feelings about getting so-called special treatment. I think I would have been of help to the group there, because first of all, why do they give a shit if you're taking an hour to do an exercise? That's more time for them to rest and take water.
Also, it was not an hour.
Well, let's say it was. I would have said, let's take advantage of this, for Christ's sake. Well, it's just that's a period of time they're not abusing us. So fine, let her take as much time as she wants.
Literally, thank you. That was literally exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, we are sitting in the shade, like we have like a little cover thing. We're sitting in the shade.
That's a big deal. Shade was a big deal. Water, a big deal. Yeah, all big deals.
And you're looking into the ocean, like, just enjoy.
Gus had to pee though.
Pretend you're in Malibu.
Exactly. Gus could have peed right there if he wanted to. There's no problem with that.
Honestly, we were soaking wet, like, from getting in and out of the ocean. Like, I guarantee.
I said, why didn't he go in the water when he was in there?
That's right. He could have peed in the water. So all right. So let's. So anyway, I thought that was, and that you took it so personally. It really bothered me. I just thought, oh man, I understand where the perfectionism and the team stuff, and I get where all that comes from, but it really troubled me that you did that to yourself.
So I think that, yes, like, the integrity aspect, as I mentioned, like, being raised with, the importance of integrity, or not even just that, but to take it a level, like, further, basically, like, I never wanted to win the Olympics or win any competition just because, like, somebody else fell or somebody else messed up and had a bad day. I always wanted everybody to essentially have the best day of their entire life. And, like, when, at the end of the day, when the results are named, like, whoever's actually best comes out on top. So that was, like, one aspect. This, though, was really hard for me to grasp and understand because it wasn't a competition. And I think, like, that was, to be completely honest, like, one of the biggest reasons that I did sign up to do this, because my whole life has been a competition. It was like from the start of, gosh, I think I was 5 years old in my first competition, all the way through, my mid-20s. And then even, like, other like Dancing with the Stars, like, every single thing I've done has always been a competition. And so I thought, wow, like, for the first time, like, this will actually be amazing to do something for yourself, to be on this journey for, like, strictly, like, for yourself and not anybody else. Like, you can't get kicked off, you can't get eliminated, like, it's literally in your own hands. And so I think, like, what nobody, not even, like, the audience, but even our fellow recruits, like, they also didn't see when I went to, each of, like, the directing staff to, when it was my turn, when I was, like, called on deck, basically, I was trying to leave. Like, I was not trying to be convinced. I was not trying to stay. I was not trying to get help or special treatment. I was like, out of full respect, thank you so much. But I was like, I physically can't do this. This is my limit. Like, thank you. Like, I'm out. I was trying to hand off, like, my armband, like, multiple times. And they all just were trying to convince me. And so that was what took so long, because they were trying to convince me. And I was like, nope. I'm, like, stubborn, like, as stubborn as it comes. And so Remy finally was like, listen, like, what if I get in the car with you? And I was like, again, respect, I appreciate it, but that's not going to help me. Like, it's not, like, I'm not afraid of water. I'm not afraid of, like, this. I just, like, knew that I couldn't, breathe or hold my breath for that long. The interesting part, obviously, of production is the stopwatch on the TV when they played it. Like, I was not down there for 20 seconds. I remember Remy putting, think it was less than 10 seconds, something on his Apple Watch. And he said, as soon as it gets, down to whatever, from like 10 seconds, as soon as time's up, like that's when you can go. Oh, as soon as the car was submerged, I was out. So I think for me, like, I didn't, yes, I did go down in the car. Yes, he was with me, whatever. But like, I still didn't complete the task like everybody else. Yeah. And I got special treat. Like, there were so many things that just didn't feel right to me. And then when I got back to like the little tent that we were all sitting at, and not a single person would look at me or say anything to me, that's when I was like, got it. Like, I don't want to, like, this journey is hard enough. I don't want to be here now as somebody that like no one wants to talk to, no one wants to look at, or people are annoyed with.
It'd be terrible.
And then, Mel was just like, but you did, like, she was like super encouraging. And I was just like, yeah, but I didn't really, like, I didn't really quite do it like everybody else. But I just kind of like checked out then, because I knew this was now not the experience that I wanted to have. These relationships all of a sudden, like this wasn't it. And it makes it, like, in the moment made me sad, but I also kind of knew, like, I get it. Full respect, like, integrity is important, and it is to me too. And I felt like that was kind of at stake, and that was being tested.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I'm sorry that you're, like you said, it made you sad. I saw Piazza tried to convince you. Susan wasn't overwhelmed with Mike's persuasive
Yeah, everybody
capacity.
tried to convince said walked away. He's not the,
So I know.
But
So the thing
but
about
more than that, like the
like,
Hollywood side of it is always like, it's in the back of your head. It's like, how much is this Hollywood and how much is this real? You want to, like, you stuck to your guns and said, I'm ready to go. I don't. And they wanted to keep women on, obviously, because they didn't want all the women to be gone in the first 5 minutes.
But it makes much more sense when she describes it this way. You see the
Of
full,
course.
you really see what was going on in her. That's why I want to do an unseen moments with this show, because there's so much stuff like this. We have many more things like this to talk about as we go on here. But it is, you said something, a few minutes ago. You said we weren't even talking about integrity. We were talking about, well, integrity was in the mix, but in your competing career, you said you fall, you fall. If you fall, you fall, right? And in a way, that's kind of what happened to you. And it made me think, wow, you had one of the epic falls in gymnastics, and people appreciated it. People liked that you'd had that happen to you, because it made it that if you fall sort of axiom sort of come home for everybody.
yeah. And I mean, that was the end of, literally that moment was the end of my career. And, in the moment, so I was trying to make my second Olympic team. And in the moment, I remember being so embarrassed, like my whole life. And not because anybody ever taught me this, but for some reason in my mind, I instilled to myself that, like, people are only going to love you or support you or cheer you on if you're the best, if you win first place, if you have a good competition, if you're perfect. Yeah, literally, if you're perfect. And so the moment that I had there at the Olympic trials, now as the reigning Olympic all-around champion, where you really should be perfect, was, I literally fell flat on my face. And I remember laying there on that mat thinking, like, oh my God, like, I'm so mortified. I'm so embarrassed. I, have disappointed what I thought was like millions of people expected more. And then I remember, like, my dad, like the dad instinct came out, and he was not my coach in that moment. And he was like, you can be done. Like, it's all good. And I was like, no. Like, you literally taught me ever since day one that no matter what you do, you always have to finish what you've started. And so for me in that moment, I was like, this routine doesn't matter anymore. I am not making my second Olympic team, but I want it to end on my own terms. And so I got up, I finished my routine, landed on my feet. And for the very first time in my entire life and career, I had a standing ovation for the worst routine of my entire life and career.
I didn't know that part. That's fascinating.
And so that moment, to me, when that happened, I started looking around the arena thinking, like, who else just went and had an amazing routine and is, well on their way to making that Olympic? Not a single person was going. I was dead last, like on that event. And I remember thinking like, but why? People shouldn't even be clapping or cheering for me. And then it took me some time to realize, but that was the moment that kind of made me realize, like, we're never going to be defined by our accomplishments. We're never going to be defined by a gold medal, a placement, a job title, a salary, a relationship, like any of those, like those things and moments don't define who we are as humans. But up until then, I thought and lived as if they did. And so seeing like 20,000 people stand to their feet for the worst routine of my entire career. Like, I kid you not, I fell flat on my face. Like, you guys can YouTube it.
Caleb can show it. It's an epic fall.
I mean, like, my boyfriend, before we met and started dating, he didn't realize that was me. He used to like send the meme GIF thingy, like as a joke. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
And so like later on in our relationship, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's you?" And I was like, "Huh?"
Caleb, you gonna play it? You just saw it. I can tell Caleb just saw
it. No, I was reacting to the story about the boyfriend doing that. Wow, that's what a move. He's in trouble now. Jeez. But Drew, sorry, I can't actually. I can't play the video, but what I'll do is I'll find it and I'll embed it on the website after the show's over. I can't
there's a great still that I'm just like flat Superman, like on my face, like on the mat. Yeah, it was quite a moment, but I think that moment to me became the defining moment of my entire life and career. Because when I won the Olympics, nobody was standing on their feet. Like everybody was just like, "Okay, great, congratulations, that's great." But like being the best is not relatable. Being the best is not what like someone wants to like be part of or cheer you.
I'm going to push back a little bit and say that nobody imagines they could ever do what you do, and so it's not as impressive to them. But to live with integrity and spirit and not giving up, all these things that we could all do, that we should, you become a model for that, and it's inspiring. And I think that's really what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, and I think it was exactly. And I think like you're right. Like nobody can relate. Wow, the golden hour right now is just like really going well with my story. This is not.
We're gonna take a break in a second. You can put some shades up if you want. We'll take a little break, or at least turn your ring light off.
It was about everyone's going to have a moment where they fall on their face, literally, like I did, figuratively.
That's right.
And it's about picking yourself up, and how do I pick myself up, and how do I keep going?
That's right. 1,000%. And that's where the inspiration, the integrity, and all these kinds of these things come rushing in. All right, so here's the deal. We're going to take a little break. We are going to then take some phone calls, and then we're going to talk about some more unseen moments. And I want to talk a little bit about your maternal language too. I think that's fascinating. I think that kind of fascinated me when we were talking about it in the desert or at the beach, wherever we were. All right, We'll be right back with Nastia Liukin after this. Genucel has so many products that Susan and I love. Their XV moisturizer locks in moisture, making dry spots a thing of the past, which is especially great with the colder weather, of course. And with the immediate effects, too, you can see these results in as little as 12 hours. Guaranteed, or your money back. Susan loves Genucel's vitamin C serum, the new deep correcting serum with lactic acid that hydrates your skin and reduces fine lines while preventing future wrinkles from forming. Don't believe me? Listen to Susan.
I am a snob when it comes to using products on my face. The dermatologist makes a ton of money from me. But when I was introduced to Genucel, I was so happy because it's so affordable and it works great. I was introduced to the Ultra Retinol Cream, which I love at night. All the eye creams are amazing. People notice my skin all the time, and I'm so excited because it's actually working.
Take advantage of this New Year's promotion by going to Genucel.com and getting 60% off now with a complimentary gift set when you subscribe to my favorite package at Genucel.com/Drew. All orders are upgraded to free shipping for the rest of the season. Use code DREW at checkout for an extra 10% off your entire order. That is genucel.com/Drew, GENUCEL.com/DREW. My guest is Philip Patrick. He is a precious metal specialist, trains at University of Redlands. He has spent years as a wealth manager at Citigroup, and his current position is with Birch Gold Group. So gold has always been somewhat of a safe haven, particularly in times of great turmoil, much like our present moment, I imagine.
Gold has always traditionally been a safe haven asset. Gold specifically has always been about wealth preservation, right? Gold has always held its buying power. You can look at as far back as you like in history. In biblical times, 1 ounce of gold would buy somebody 400 loaves of bread. And today it does the same thing. So it's a store of value. But I would say in times like this, as you mentioned, it's particularly important when you're dealing with things like 40-year high inflation, the air that's coming out of a stock market bubble. These times in particular tend to drive gold and silver up quite significantly. If things are different, the solution needs to be different as well. So I encourage everyone to get informed, and we have a lot of good information here to help your listeners.
Just a reminder, I am not a financial advisor, and I do not give out financial advice nor investing advice. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers. Check them out now. Visit birchgold.com/Drew and secure your future with gold. Do it now. And we are back with Nastia Liukin. And Susan, you want to lean in and tell me what you were just saying there? Hold on one second, Nastia. She was saying how Susan,
well,
we all went out to dinner the other night, and Susan was there, and she looked around the table afterwards at me. She goes, "You guys wouldn't even know each other for this show, and yet we become these really close friends."
And Nastia really was very nice too, because she said, "Oh, I made these great friendships with all of you," and then she looked over at me and she said, "And you're my friend now too, Susan." And I felt so good inside. But what I noticed is that you guys are bonded like a band of brothers. It's like really strange to see. The women are different together than the men. I'm going to say that as well, because I've met in a group of each one separately. But even though Drew was only there for like 12 hours or whatever, or maybe you guys knew each other during the quarantine.
It doesn't matter.
It's weird that it doesn't matter. Yeah.
He was changed forever, and he's a better person for it, because he realizes he's a perfectionist too, like you are. And he realizes that, you can only do so much. And he felt like a failure, but he never fails at anything, but he also learned that he has you guys still to keep, this moment in life, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but
it's hard to put words.
He doesn't do WhatsApp with 12 people at the same time. He's not a WhatsApp group texter. You guys have been like little girls.
Group text, like both of those things. I hate WhatsApp and I hate group text, and the fact that we're all in it. Actually, the WhatsApp to blame is because of Mel. I'm gonna call her out there, like you, Susan, like you said, the best way that I can kind of put it into perspective, at least for me, because I've thought so much about it and like this group, is I am the only child. So, I don't have brothers and sisters. My boyfriend is one of 6. So he has brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews for days. So with me, I think the closest to that feeling that I have felt, besides this cast of our fellow recruits, was my Olympic team. Having this bond, I've never been able to relate it to anything else except for the 5 other girls that were on my Olympic team, because you go through something that you will remember for the rest of your life. For so many, including myself, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, experience, and nobody can fully understand all of it unless you are there, unless you are part of it.
Yep.
And that bond that we have now, I say this every single time I talk about my teammates, if one of them called me right now in the middle of this, my Olympic teammates, or honestly, fellow recruits, and they said, I need help, I need you, I need something, I would, apologize and say, "I'm so sorry, Dr. Drew, I have to go." And there's not many people in the world that you will do that for.
It's true. And if you notice, Jamie Lynn said the same thing. Did you notice that at that little thing we did as promotion? She said she really doesn't have friends because of all the stuff in her life. And this is her friends. She feels like really connected to all of us, which is amazing. I've got some calls for you. Ilana, go ahead here. There you are.
Hi, Nastia. This is like ridiculously exciting for me. So let me just fangirl for a second. But I wanted to let you know, I was at that San Jose meet in 2012 when you fell. And I want you to know that, I don't know if you realize that we were all, you know, part of this 20,000 or whatever it was, that we were all like so proud of you that you were doing this 4 years after winning the all-around gold, that it didn't really matter. I mean, the fact that you were out there again was so exciting that you got back, you know, 4 years after taking time off to doing that. And even though you fell, we all just wanted to cheer you on and tell you that we loved you and we were super proud of you. So in case you didn't know that, wanted to know that you are aware of that. So, but anyway, my question to you was, you're very welcome. But just know that. I mean, it was like, it's such a big deal. So that's why I'm like, you know, fangirling out. So apologize for that. But how did you think that gymnastics helped you with special forces?
First of all, again, thank you times like a million. That was very, very special and sweet. And thank you for sharing.
Hang on a second, Nastia. I'm going to interrupt. Ilana's got a friend, and she's responsible for this bobblehead. Maybe we make a Nastia bobblehead too, Ilana. Maybe.
We need to.
I want a Dr.
She's
Drew
got one
first for one of the shelves here in my studio.
Oh my God!
Oh! I thought we sent you one. Okay, we'll send you one.
No, we didn't. And if you get me her address, I'll send her one.
Well, how about making a Nastia bobblehead? That's what I'm more interested in. What about that?
You know, I am all for doing that. If Nastia would like to do that, I am quite happy to discuss with her off air.
All right, Nastia, so you can tell Susan if you're interested in that. I think that'd be fantastic.
Perfect.
But anyway, so go ahead, Nastia. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I'm glad you did, because that was a very important story I needed to know. And I'm like, clearly I have plenty of little spaces still open on the shelves for Dr. Drew bobblehead. So I think for me, I think it was the mental strength, the mental toughness, honestly. I think what really, like, and I touched on it earlier, but it was what didn't help me for sure was the lack, like not being prepared and not feeling prepared, not feeling ready. And like that caused anxiety for me because, again, I just kept thinking like, you would never go into any gymnastics competition, little like the Olympics, like Olympic trials, whatever it is, as unprepared as you are in this moment. But there was, I could have certainly done more physical activity and gotten stronger, but it also came about like so quickly, the whole show itself. But then I think it was just the lack of like, you know, my dad always instilled in me, like, integrity is like that whole thing, but also the importance of getting enough sleep, the importance of like proper nutrition, the importance of recovery and rest and you know, all those things where like we did not have any of that. It was you prop your little feet up on your backpack. If you have 2 minutes, then like you get your 2 minutes of, you know, blood flow and rest and recovery. And the nutrition aspect, I thought, you know, I was feeding my dog what I was eating most of the days. And I understand the like logic and all of that, but I think that part was hard for me. The part that helped me, I think, was just like locking it in. And also, you know, I've had a coach my entire life. I've gone to training camps. I've gone to competitions where we have a head coach. And so for me, that was the directing staff. When you are lined up, you better book it to, you know, the parade square or to line up. You better, you know, look them in the eye and show respect and all of that. And it's really funny because I think Dwight really struggled with that a little bit. And
yes, he did.
Yeah, we all struggled therefore, because, you know, when one person gets punished or in trouble, we all do. And I think that was also something that was different for me with gymnastics being such an individual sport. You know, the team aspect to it was something I had to adjust.
Yeah, you know, Danny said the same thing about coaching that you just said, that it felt familiar to him. You know, maybe you don't know a part of my story. One of the reasons I got in such trouble with the fluids, they kept threatening to punish the group if anybody didn't have their water topped off. My water was never topped off. And so whenever they'd ask me, I go, I'm fine, I'm full tank. That's it, I'm done. I didn't want them punishing everybody. And that's kind of it's again, that's another sort of, it's strategic. You have to figure out how to manage that in such a way that you don't hurt yourself and you don't get your group punished.
Of course. And it's like that, you know, again, not being selfish by any means, but it's also like, you know, I'm sure like Remy, like if you would go back into this knowing what you know now, you would make sure to have your water, like you would make sure you would do it completely different. I guarantee. And so, you know,
that's
lessons learned, and, you know, there's so many amazing, again, I think we learned so much, but I have, and not speaking on behalf of anybody else, but I think the greatest thing that for me came out of this was truly, you know, 15 other brothers and sisters for the rest of my life.
Yeah, we all say the same thing. Yeah, we literally all say the same thing. I'm going to get some more people up here, see if they have questions for you. This is somebody that goes as perceptually enhanced. There you have to unmute yourself in the lower left-hand corner there, like Caleb's animation showed us. There you are.
There we are.
There you are.
Perfect.
Hey.
Yeah, my name is Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Dobry dzień, Nastia.
Yes.
This is absolutely what I wanted to get into next. So let's go have at it a little bit in Russian.
Great segue. I'm Polish, and so Polish and Russian kind of similar. We have some similar words. You know, we say na zdrowie when we cheers, similar in Russian, za zdrowie, and certainly dobry dzień and dzień dobry. So fantastic. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I was just talking about the show this weekend with a SEAL buddy of mine who's good friends with Remy. But I was kind of curious about some of your training earlier in life, I guess, getting ready for the Olympics. Were you involved, or did you participate in any kind of blindfolded training? Dr. Drew, in the Ask Dr. Drew, I sent you a quick message with a couple screenshots from a paper. The paper says the following. This is just the title, and then we can get into it in a second. You can let me know what you think. Visual sensory deprivation, an innovative training method for proprioceptive specific strength enhancement.
It makes sense, I guess. Well, let's see what Nastia says.
Yeah.
Nastia,
go ahead.
You know, I think not to make light of it at all, but like 4 inches, the balance beam is only 4 inches wide. So being blindfolded would be extremely difficult, I guess, and dangerous. But I can't say I have any experience.
Can you think of any deficiency from a coaching standpoint, Nastia, where that might be an intervention? You know, coaches always have odd, interesting ways of maybe somebody's. I don't know.
Communication would be an immediate one, Dr. Drew.
Communication.
There was a paper published a few years ago where they looked at blindfolding residents in the hospital, and they had a bunch of residents on the pediatric code team, and they blindfolded the leader, and they found that the commands that the leader gave were much clearer for the team. The communication between the team members and the leader of the team was greatly improved through removing vision. You know, in the message that I sent you, one of the shots there is, looks at the sequence elements that are involved in proprioception. Yeah. And so, balance, you've got input from 3 different sensory systems. Yep. Vestibular, somatosensory, and visual. Mm-hmm. That's it. And so when you take away the vision, you're forcing your other systems.
No, I get it. I get what you're doing. And it's a fascinating idea. I just am not sure that it's worth the risk of injury or where you would use that kind of thing? Because the reality is you are using your vision. It's like when you take a piano player and blindfold them. Well, maybe for specific goals in mind or something, but I don't know. I'm not sure it's worth the risk. And you're saying you don't think it would have helped you. And by the way, we were blindfolded in the desert a good deal of the time at the beginning.
I know,
I don't know that did much for us.
Yeah, and again, can only speak on behalf of like my own experiences. I am such a visual learner. Like whether it was gymnastics, like Dancing with the Stars. I remember my partner, who was Derek Huff, who was incredible, but he would literally, there were times where he would be like, do this, and I was like, that's what the word sounded like to me. And I was like, can you show me once? And then I literally will repeat it. And I think it was very similar for me, at least in gymnastics. We had huge like monitors, TVs basically throughout the gym. And if your coach tells you a correction or mistake, there are times and moments where like you don't quite feel like, not like you don't feel like you're doing that mistake or correction, but you don't understand, or when you see yourself doing it, then you're like, okay, I now know how to fix it. So that's what I mean, I guess, by like a visual kind of learner. So for me, I fully understand, fully respect, but yeah, I was kind of the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way. I have lots of weird visual and auditory learning things that are, I think, kind of, and everyone has their own stuff.
Yeah,
I was remiss, by the way, I've not mentioned the show is Wednesdays at 9:00 on Fox Network. Now let's go back to Russian is your maternal language, right?
So it's so interesting because I always like struggle with so I was born there. We moved, both my parents, grew up there. We moved when I was about 2.5. So because 2.5, the age 2.5 was so, and maybe you guys can tell me as parents, but like, I don't remember how much of a vocabulary, I mean, I guess, yeah, you're speaking, but because we moved to the United States so early on, I, quickly adapt. Like English is much, much easier for me. I would now consider it, my like go-to. I have to if I'm speaking Russian to my grandparents or whatever, there are certain words that I have to pause and think, what is that word? Or I never learned how to read.
I get it.
Basically in Russian.
But I'm guessing your parents continued to speak it in the home, and so you probably understand it a lot better than you can produce it. And that's
100%.
That's kind of the way, and that's kind of the way languages are, unless you're immersed in it, unless you have to speak it. That's kind of the way it works. And you were sort of 2.5. You definitely you'd probably your accent is good, and probably your sort of ease with the basics is sort of locked in, and then then that's it. But back to stories. You told me a crazy story about waitresses talking shit about you at a restaurant in Russian or something. Do you remember the story?
Yeah. So
it cracked me up.
So we were for the Sochi Olympics. I was there with NBC, and I was filming this segment, and our we were all just. Nobody else spoke Russian. And it was kind of just my, side note, oh, by the way, I actually can, I think everybody was used to people not speaking, any Russian, basically, while, people were there for the Olympics. And so, we were ordering, and I really like to blend in, no matter where I am, not just in different countries or whatever. I don't like to, cause a scene. I don't, clearly, as you can tell in the show, I'm I'm out. I don't want special treatment. But I think, so I just was okay, there's a group of us, it'd be just do what everybody else is doing kind of. And I should have just done the opposite from the beginning, because they basically got pretty annoyed with, us not being able to speak Russian, or like the group basically. And yeah, they just like started talking about us and our entire group. And I was like, I didn't say anything back to what they were saying. I just like made sure the next time that they came over to the table to speak Russian, and they were like, oh shit, okay, got it. So yeah,
it's so
comes
funny.
in handy sometimes.
That's so
like it does. Like it. One of my best friends growing up, my dad's business partner, who is a coach at, like, my second dad essentially. He has a daughter as well, and we would just like, you know, we both grew up, like, she's a year older than me, and so we would always speak English because it was like more of the cool thing to do, because when you speak a different language, different culture when you're young, not cool. Now I appreciate it. But then it was like, you know, but then all of a sudden we just randomly start talking Russian to just annoy, like, this is what you do when you're like, you know, a child and literally doing like childish things. But we thought it was like the funniest, craziest thing that no one could understand us. And here we are just like talking, not even about anybody, just like talking about like what we want to eat or like something stupid, you know?
Yeah, but you know what? Everybody can appreciate kind of the little thrill of having a secret language with a good friend, you know. And if you're a young kid, you're a young kid, and of course you're going to do stuff like that. It's like a magic power. It's kind of maybe that's why I'm fascinated by it for you. But just to flesh out that story, what were the waitresses saying? You didn't tell me in the desert. Now you're going to tell me what they actually were saying.
Well, to be honest, I think it was, I don't remember fully the story, but I know that they were annoyed with like us, you know, the Americans basically not speaking Russian and not understanding or not doing something not right, but essentially, you know, it was a lot. I mean, no matter what country you're in, like, it's a lot to come into like basically a country where you don't speak the language on both parts. And so, yeah, I remember that being like, ooh, do I like say something now? Like, but then what do you say? Like, oh, I'm going to stop you right there before you really shit talk on us, because I actually understand everything you're saying right now. Or do I pretend like this whole time I don't know? And then I was like, oh God, this is my perfectionism in my head of like, what's the right thing to do? There's not a right thing to do. You just like,
I think you played it pretty good. You played it pretty well. Like, that's pretty maximum humor too, which is good.
Yeah.
And so, but let's go back to the show in the remaining time and talk a little bit more about the sort of unseen stuff that you wanted to bring forward for people. You mentioned before the cameras heated up that the order was a little kind of weird, and it's made it look like you and Mel left like 5 minutes apart. And there were sort of elements like that. There's so much happening those first few days. I mean, constantly stuff going on that you just didn't see.
Yeah. The fact too, like, I think the first thing right off the bat, that little run that we did right when we got there was not a little run. I know. Hate running. I hate running. Like, and I was like, oh, of course, like, this is literally what we have to do first. And not to mention, not only was it just a run, we were doing bear crawls and push-ups and squats and holding squats and keeping up with people and getting yelled at not to be last. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is literally going to last hours. And it looked like in the episode, we just did like a hop, skip, and a jump away, whatever. And it was like, we were there. And I'm like, like, literally, I remember watching being so like, no. Can everyone just pause and be proud of me for a second? Because I ran at least 2 miles plus did stuff in between, and we were dying. So anyways, that was
we were
like
dying. Yeah. There was a lot of stuff like that where when you just saw a few seconds of it, and it went on a lot longer than
like butt naked, changing in front of each other, like right from the beginning. Like, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was craziness. So that moment, I feel like that whole experience in the parade area is what stripped us. Literally, we were stripped down. I mean, we were people. Literally, you looked like we were just sort of changing clothes. No, we were stripped. We were then yelled at, then we were instructed to do more things, and then we were back in the water, and then we were in the sand, we were back in the water. And people, if you remember, the part that kind of bothered me that they didn't show was when we all jumped in the water, we were in there a couple of times. People were jumping on top of each other, and that like really concerned me, right? And then people couldn't get out. There was a number of people that couldn't get out.
So I remember, of course, me being like competitive and like, you know, again, like you have to be like the first to everything, whether it's lunch or a meal, whatever. So like in my mind, that instinct like immediately took over, which I thought was really interesting because I have not been in a situation like that in well over 10 years. And so it just like a flip switched, and I like just like was like, you have to like go first or else like you're gonna get in trouble. And so I jumped right away, and all of a sudden like people were jumping on top of me, and I'm like,
yes,
again, if you know, like none of this was shown, but it's like I can't hold my breath very well. And so I start panicking as I feel weight, and I just keep getting like pushed under, and you don't realize how deep that tank is. I forget.
I didn't know what the bottom. I never got to the bottom. I don't think I ever got to the bottom. It's at least 8 feet deep, maybe 10 feet deep.
I think I heard it was between 10 and 12. I might be wrong, but
that makes sense.
That makes sense. It's just like, yeah. So that was already.
And the other part is it was not a pool. It was like a sack. And so you couldn't get traction on the plastic on the side. And the lip was about 3.5 feet.
Luckily for me, the only thing I think that helped me was like the flexibility. I literally just swung my leg over the side, like I was like in a full like scale like kind of thing, and just somehow like pushed myself up. Like, and also by the way, we have our boots on, which you don't. I don't know if any of the listeners and viewers today, but like when those boots are wet, it feels like you have ankle like heavy. Try doing anything with like 5-10 ankle pound weights on. So yeah, it was
and other clothes too.
Like
and something that I know what I did is, you know, I grabbed the tube. If you grab the lip of the tube, you can throw yourself up, or you can just secure yourself there. And I was always mystified why other people didn't do that, because I just grabbed the tube and held on for a minute, and then I tried to help other people as I got out.
I know. And I think that was the thing too. Right from the beginning, none of us really knew. For me, I remember thinking like you just brought up like this memory in my mind, because you said like then you would help other people, and it's like immediately in my mind I'm like, okay, do I help? Like people are struggling. I don't want to leave them behind, but am I going to get in trouble for not just like worrying about myself and getting to that? Because it's like, that was day one. We didn't know what to do. And so then you're like, okay, do I just say like, screw it? Like who cares if I get in trouble? I need to help my already teammates and friends. But then it was like then they were screaming like, hurry up and get there. And I'm just like, like, it was a lot.
Yeah, no. I don't think anybody had any resentments or notes for anybody, because we were all just trying to figure it out. And then they started yelling us to help other people out. So I was like, okay. But even then, if you didn't do it fast enough, they'd start yelling at you. So it was very
it was like
weird. Yeah, well, then that's sort of what they were going for. But what did we know it then? Do you remember at lunch on day one when Kate looked up and went, guys, look at us. They've changed us already. Do you remember her saying that?
Yeah.
There was a moment for me when she said that, because I was just like, wow, she's right. We're 4 hours in and we are like changed already.
It's so interesting because I think the moments, I was going to say cafeteria, but like it wasn't even that. It was like, you know, a little tent where we ate basically. But the moments in there, for some reason, I think we all felt a little bit more like at ease and at peace, because we thought that they couldn't, like, we were all like, we have to at least eat something. And so we kind of thought like, we at least have 5 or 10 minutes where we, while we were like in our actual tent with like our cots and everything, we could have gotten called at any moment. When we were eating, it was like our sacred moment of, okay, we at least have a few moments. So I think everyone everyone's pressure kind of went down for a second. And we actually, there were some really like interesting moments in there where everyone just kind of like paused and took a breath.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the stuff we saw with you and Mel was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah. And even, I believe Jamie and Mel and
Jamie Lynn
also
too. Yeah.
we were all, so everyone was a team leader, or not everybody, but like you were assigned a team leader. Jamie Lynn was day one, like, and she set the bar like so high for everyone, not knowing what we were even like, what is that role? And she did like such a good job. I remember talking to Mel, and Mel was like, I've been watching her. Like I am just like, not like shocked, but like, I can't like make sure you're writing this down. Make sure you're writing down what Jamie Lynn is doing, because we're all going to be leaders one of these days. And Mel was the team leader, I think, the next day. And she like, Jamie Lynn made sure everyone ate, it was like a very, obviously like as a mom too, like, and that was one of the things that her and I talked about. She was like, I feel like such a bad mom right now because I'm not home with my kids. And I was like, no. Try to flip it and think like, your kids are going to watch you do like insanely incredible things. And in that, at the same time, like seeing her treat all of us, like, I was like, okay, I've never seen you around your kids yet, but I can already tell how incredible you are because of like, you're in a situation that's miserable and you're still being incredible to us.
Yeah. And I want a t-shirt that says Jamie Lynn Spears saved my life, because the stuff no, I'm not kidding, because towards the end, you may not be aware, but I was getting, I had no idea either. I was trying to hide it from everybody. I was getting confused. I was out of it.
I saw
and she just
that.
Goes, no,
I saw
come with
you
me.
really trying to like, because obviously we all like, are you okay? Are you, and it's like at a certain point, you don't know what's, you never want to be like the annoying one that's kind of like asking a million times and you're like, I'm fine or whatever. Clearly you actually were not fine, but it like in that moment, nobody knows, what the right thing to do is. And I think knowing that, like Jamie Lynn obviously just took control and like thank God she did, because like she probably saved your life. I don't know.
I could have just passed out right there in the bed and you guys would have thought I was asleep or something. It could have easily happened. And so 100%. And I didn't know. I was so out of it. But anyway, so enough about me. We're in our closing moments here. It's interesting to me how when any of us talk about our experiences, we get sort of PTSD spun up.
Like,
we all have the exact same thing. Yeah. It happens to every one of us as we talk about it.
Is the AC on in here?
and I think I kind of like it. I like that it's intense for us, because that helps sort of communicate how how much this meant to us and how extraordinary lucky to have these experiences that were challenging and life changing. And so let me ask you just the last few minutes. The helicopter. Any thoughts about diving out of the helicopter? Was that a good experience? Intense experience? Were you freaking out about that at all? Or
so. These are the moments that I wish like were shown, or like at least if they're not on TV, I wish we could have like a highlight reel of like individually, because I remember, I think I'm like, again, I wish I would have been able to have a piece of like, a journal or something, because I don't remember exactly. I think it was Billy, but when I first of all, the run to just get to the first stop of the helicopter, that was like,
I got lost. I ended up down in the wash. I went down into the wash and got lost. So it was a bit. It was 110 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, which way do I go? And they're like, just go. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember getting there, and I remember like just standing there like at attention, like not speaking, not trying to like, do anything. And I believe it was Billy. I don't quite remember, but one of the directing staff said like, are you ready? And I was like, yes, staff. And they said, well, like without saying it, but they said like without mentioning, basically they knew I was a gymnast, but they were like, you should be good at this flipping aspect, right? And I somehow I was like, yes, Steph, but I'm used to landing on my feet. And like, I kind of felt like a little, and because that is the first thing you do. Like you learn as a gymnast, no matter what, like curl up in a ball, like pike down, do whatever it is, but like land on your feet. Do not land on your head. And so for 20 plus years of my life, my muscle memory was just pike, land on your feet. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fail the first task. I am not afraid of heights. I am not afraid to flip. I'm not afraid of water. But like, I'm afraid my muscle memory is going to take over right now. And I'm just going to like, you know, try to land on my feet. So he like tries so hard not to laugh because it's like, you know, it's our first task. You're trying to be serious. And he's like, and then he looks back at me and he goes, but I'm sure you managed to land on your head at least once or twice, right? And I was like,
oh my
yes,
God,
Steph. And he goes, so you can do it again, right? And I was like, yes, Steph, I'm ready. And that was it.
Oh, it's so funny. Your jump was good too. I remember it. And the hardest part for me was not the jump, but the getting, the taller folks like me had to go down to the second rung on the thing. And that was really hard because you're flying over the Red Sea, you know, with Israel one side and Saudi Arabia on the other, and you're trying to be Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. And then by the time I got down there, I thought, well, now I can handle it. Yeah, I know. So
yeah, the other thing was like none of the harnesses fit. Everything was too big. First world problems, I know, but it was really scary for me because we didn't know what was ahead. And so I remember being like, I'm afraid. And our safety girl was amazing. But she was like, you can have a life jacket if you want. And I was like, no, I can swim. And she was like, I know, but because we don't have a smaller harness. And I was like, okay.
Oh, did you wear a life jacket?
I did for the helicopter one because I didn't know what we were doing. No one had gone yet.
Yeah. So
I
tell
had
me.
no idea.
So one of the things I wonder was, did the life jacket make things more restrictive and difficult? Like for like Montel and Kate, who really didn't swim, and it seemed to, I don't know, it seemed to get in their way a little bit. Did it get in your way?
Not on the like actual flip part. I think because I was so comfortable like going backwards, it was the like up until like no one could fully tell me what the harness was for. And I think that's why I was panicking, because I was like, if I'm going to be dangling by the harness, like, yes, I want a life jacket just in case, like I can swim, but but honestly, it was a lot hard because when they kept saying like when you had to swim to like the shore, essentially, that it was like pulling me back. Yeah, it was keeping me afloat, but it was pulling me back or something. I have no idea. But yeah, I was I had no idea. Like we don't know anything. So it was like the harness is too big. Sure, I will take a life jacket.
Right. This is the key thing that people have to get, is that we were always off balance. We never knew it was coming. Even as simple as run to the helicopter, they wouldn't tell us where to go or how to get. They just go, and you figure it out, and you're always off balance. And so all that conversation was in the helicopter with Billy?
No, it was right before, like the helicopter's like flying in to land. So like, the wind is picking up and I'm like, but I'm used to landing on my head.
Yeah, that's the other guy, right? That was Foxy that was on the ground. So Billy was in the helicopter when you got in there, I think.
They kind of like switched back and forth, but yeah, they were all incredible. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, hopefully we'll get to do some sort of reunion, something with those guys, and get to see them again. But Nastia, I appreciate you coming on so much. It's so fun to talk to you as always. And I know there was a lot of excitement from people in our world that you were going to come in here. I got emails, and everyone wanted to hear what you have to say. And it's I'm so glad you had a chance to talk about what happened with the car submersion, because I knew there was a lot of information missing there, and it upset me because I didn't understand. You're now, to be clear, everyone's good with everybody, and so no one harbors any resentments or anything on any part. But it hurt me to see the people kind of shunning you a little bit, and then what you did yourself. And I was like, that something's wrong, something's missing. So it makes more sense when you tell the whole story.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me, the opportunity to do so. So we're all family, and I think, as I mentioned, the greatest thing that came out of the show was all of us, coming into each other's lives.
I agree, my friend. NastiaLiukin.com is where you go, and I will no doubt see you very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Drew.
Thanks, Nastia. And for the rest of you, as I said, we've got probably calls coming tomorrow. We'll talk. There was a lot of, on the restream, a lot of chatter about what's going on with the Twitter files and the vaccines and whatnot. I also know that there's going to be a Pfizer executive on one of the Twitter spaces soon to defend some of the decisions, and I'm fascinated to get that. And then, as you see, Hatfield on Wednesday with Kelly Victory. And we appreciate Nastia coming in here, and we appreciate you all for stopping by. Special Forces is 9 o'clock on Fox, whatever that number is in your particular area, Fox Network. And I guess it's probably 8 o'clock Central, I'm guessing. But
it says 8/7 Central.
8. That was, I think, the original. I think that was the first episode. I think the subsequent ones are 9, 8 Central. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well, I'll update that if they changed it. Yeah.
Check your listings if I'm wrong. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.
I've always heard people being constipated, but I've never been constipated as far as I know.
Remember when you had the diverticular abscess?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you have constipation then? Or at least in the operation afterwards?
No, I shat quite a lot during that. But my question is, because recently I had an episode and I wasn't sure if I was constipated or just I had a shit that was too big to shit out.
You can. Yes, things can get dry and impacted up there, and it can be hard to get it through. Yep. That's constipation.
That is constipation?
That's a version of constipation. There's different manifestations.
Then I was constipated for the first time in 2 weeks.
Maybe that's what he was doing.
You want to experience that?
See?